he's within his rights, and he's telling the truth as he sees it. And I am with him 100%.
People say, you know, oh, he has all this money, so he doesn't deal with those problems. Well, you know, all the money in the world can't buy you freedom. You know, can't change your skin color.
Got to respect the man's opinion and as well as his actions. I definitely understand where he's coming from.
Voltaire so eloquently stated, I may not agree with what you say, but I'll defend until death your right to say it.
That flag gives you the right to do whatever you want, and I understand that. Anquan said that, and I agree with that. But at the same time, you have to show some respect.
You got to respect the flag, and you got to stand up with your teammates. It's bigger than just you.
You know, when I think of the national anthem, I think of, you know, what soldiers, you know, what the soldiers that have died, you know, for our rights.
As a service member, you know, I have to understand it. I have to understand that obviously but you know, he's an athlete. He's got a huge platform. He's got to see the impact that he has on a lot of people's lives.
Reaction to Colin Kaepernick's national anthem protest has clearly been pouring in over the last few days. The NFL releasing the following statement on Cap's actions. Players are encouraged but not required to stand during the playing of the national anthem. Max, what should the NFL do now?
Nothing, really. I mean, the NFL actually has a more enlightened policy about this than the NBA, which mandates that you stand for the national anthem. It's compulsory. Maybe the NFL, if they're going to do something, could make clear the difference between encouraging everyone to stand on the one hand, but not coercing them into standing on the other. If you listen to Jay Gruden's comments from earlier today about this subject, he is walking a fine line, in my opinion, between kind of encouraging his team to stand and saying, hey, I'm going to bring not just social pressure, but professional pressure to bear.
Jeff Fisher,
to make Jeff Fisher, too, to make you conform to this kind of behavior. But actually, the NFL has a fairly enlightened policy about this compared to the NBA, which is surprising when you consider who their commissioners are and the histories of those leagues. My question is this. Why do we play the national anthem at sporting events in the first place? I mean, I know the historical reason. It was popular. 1918 World Series, and people responded to it, and you're coming out of the First World War, and there's a sense of patriotism, but basically it's popular. The fans responded to it because patriotism is a great thing. Be patriotic toward this country. It is the greatest country in the world. But then over time, I don't even think it's because it's popular anymore, Stephen A. It's not that it's unpopular, but I don't think that's the reason we do it. I think it's because sports is a religion in this country, and we know that we will congregate, many Americans will congregate at sporting events. And if we don't play the national anthem there, I mean, that's where a lot of Americans hear it for the most part. Where else are you going to encounter the national anthem? So it's become a kind of American tradition at sporting events. But when you think about it, when you go to the movies, you don't sit through the national anthem or stand up for the national anthem before the movie starts. I mean, what other public gathering that you do, especially entertainment, where they play the national anthem? Although it's been told, and you know, that at country, I haven't been to a country music concert, but apparently at country music concerts, they do play the national anthem. But at most concerts, they don't. At most other public gatherings, they don't. But it has become codified in the traditions of our sports culture that you hear it every time, and we just kind of accept it without even thinking, yes, now's the time that, but I suppose that we don't have to live in a place where they have to play it. We seem to like it.
Should we stop?
I think that I personally like the tradition. If you're asking me personally if we should stop, I like it. I like standing up because, like many Americans, that's where I'm encountering it. And if you don't hear it before a sporting event, where do you hear it? But I see a strong argument that says, look, we don't play it at the movies. We don't play it at most concerts, at any other real public entertainment gathering, and yet we play it before every sporting event in this country.
When Dwayne Wade was shooting baskets, it created an uproar because they were playing Toronto in the playoffs, and the Canadians obviously were highly offended. He felt the need to apologize. He meant no offense. Knowing the character of the man that he is, he certainly did not. But they, obviously, their flag means a great deal to them. Every nation that we encounter, their flag means something to them. So when we take that into consideration, why shouldn't our flag mean something to us? I don't know the answer, and bear with me on this, Max, because I'm not saying that I disagree with what you articulated. I'm simply saying that I'm not sure. When I listen to folks from the black community, particularly yesterday on news and sports talk radio, and you had so many black folks talking about what a lot of folks consider a racist history of the flag. First of all, I'm not informed enough to speak on that. So I'm willing to acknowledge that. But you know what jumped out in my mind? I've been around this earth for 48 years, and I never heard black folks complaining about the national anthem until yesterday. So where was the noise at that particular for all of these other years? We know the history of the Star-Spangled Banner. We get where it comes from. We know that it was actually popular in America's national pastime, baseball, before it was indoctrinated into our culture legally by the federal government in 1931. So we understand that. But where was this uproar then? And then when we talk about our military, well, we have black folks who literally fought for the right to represent our country as military servicemen and women. Okay, what about then? If things were so offensive, then why were we doing it then? I'm just asking the question rhetorically. So I'm saying this to say to you this reality. When Colin Kaepernick speaks, or he spoke on this issue, there's a couple of things that alarmed me. He talked about, and I kind of wrote it down, he talked about when things change, he'll stand up. You know, meaning blacks not getting arrested, blacks not getting killed. What exact change are you talking about? And who exactly is supposed to institute and implement that change? It seems a very vague, vague situation that he's created where he's going to be able to make a definitive decision to stand up and salute or recognize the national anthem. Then we also have to take something else into consideration, which gives black folks who disagree with him, white folks who disagree with him, Latino folks and others who disagree with him, very salient points when they bring up this reality. Isolated actions by people should not condemn all Americans. There are millions upon millions of people who agree with Colin Kaepernick. And other millions who don't. So you seem to be, striving for a perfect America. You're not going to accomplish that. You're not going to pull that off. And as a result, you're taking isolated incidences and you're essentially engaging in condemnation as it pertains to the United States of America. And I'm saying is when you do something like that, it becomes very offensive to other people, and that's exactly what you're addressing. So you're offended, you're upset, and your reaction is to do the same. I don't know. I really don't. But these are the kind of questions that need to be asked, because at the end of the day, when you take such a public position, exactly what is your point? To me, the reason why I would support Colin Kaepernick is because he specifically said police brutality. He specifically said, crimes that have been conducted against black people. Walter Scott getting shot in the back. Eric Garner getting choked. Castillo in Minneapolis getting shot by a cop while in the car with his fiancée and his 4-year-old child in the back seat. These are the kind of things talking about. Dylan Roof, who murders 9 people, but the cops come and get him and literally stop to get him Burger King. Okay, but black lives are, black folks are dying. When something like that happens and you bring up something that crystallized, I'm with you. But the vague statements that he has given off, now that's a challenge to me. That's a challenge to me.
It comes down to how much of a protest personality does Colin Kaepernick have, if we're talking about Kaepernick specifically. Is it that because there are some people, no matter what, the world isn't perfect and things haven't been remedied. They will never be perfect. It will never be perfectly remedied. We're talking about any part of life. And so they will continue to protest. And others who will say, okay, but we've come so far. I want to say this about the flag. You bring up the flag and the Star-Spangled Banner and what it represents. This debate, whenever it comes up, and it's come up in the past, it'll come up in the future, always comes down to, when you look at the flag, do you honor the fact that you get to protest and therefore stand up for the flag? I'm very patriotic. I have a very good feeling when I see the flag. I hear the Star-Spangled Banner because, hey, I live in a country that allows. But if we all always feel that way, and there are no Colin Kaepernicks, then all we're doing is paying lip service to the idea of our ability to have our right to free speech. Kaepernick is exercising that right to free speech.
I got it. But here's the flip side, as it specifically addresses the question of what the NFL should do. Now, you might say nothing. Here's the problem. Colin Kaepernick isn't sitting at home minding his business and decides to protest. He is putting on an NFL uniform. He is getting paid to play football, but he's also being paid to represent the shield. That shield generates billions of dollars a year from the patrons out there that you're talking about. And so we want to sit up here and act like there's no onus, there's no obligation, there's no responsibility to others while you got your hand out. Because remember, and I'm not, again, I'm just asking questions here because I'm not, I can fess up and acknowledge when I simply don't know where to go with something. But I am saying when you are a professional athlete, you are getting paid. Colin Kaepernick didn't sit there and give back his salary and say, I don't give a damn, don't pay me. This is the position that I took. He's taking this position while offending those very patrons he's taking money from to pay his salary to represent the shield. So if you're the NFL, I'm not saying they should do it, but if the NFL suddenly stood up and adopted the same mentality as the National Basketball Association by saying you have to stand for the national anthem because we have to show respect and deference to a nation of Americans who patronize our product, well, that's a different argument. Well, if the NFL makes that argument, I don't know if I can disagree with that. I don't know.
First of all, the NFL, in their rules, they encourage, they don't, it's not compulsory.
They don't. I said that.
Like Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, who was fined because he had one game
NBA mandates it, NFL does not. They encourage, but they don't mandate.
This country is about, another great thing about this country is the minority is protected from the tyranny of the majority, populism, and making rules and passing laws based on popular sentiment at the moment and passions at the moment is usually not a good idea. And I would even say, in the preamble to our Constitution, we the people, in order to make a more perfect union, you know how you make a more perfect union? By changing things. And again, the America love it or leave it crowd seems to fly in the face of that. And Kaepernick, in my opinion, honors our greatest traditions by protesting in this way.
And I'm saying to you, you may be absolutely right, which is why our federal government gets involved in a bevy of things. But the NFL is a private industry. It has the right, Max Kellerman, if it so chooses to say, if you represent our product, these are our rules. Go back to the marijuana. You see, this shouldn't be tested. They said, we don't care what you think. This is what it is. And if you play in our league, this is how it's going to be. So America is about choices. And if you are Colin Kaepernick and the NFL decides that we are going to adopt the same mentality as the NBA, take it or leave it.
Two separate
arguments. What you going to do? It's not two separate arguments.
You're making the might makes right argument, or the fact that that's the reality, versus what should be. Yes, you're talking about the reality of the pressure that the league can bring to bear, including passing new rules.
I said if they did.
According to their rules right now, that's not the case. And I'm talking about
the question was, what should they do?
Right, what should they do?
Right.
And I'm saying nothing. I like their rule the way it is.
And I told you I agree, but what I'm saying is if you're Colin Kaepernick, you have to be mindful of the fact that that's a possibility because the NFL hasn't been confronted with this reality before.
So in other words, you have certain rights, even within the context of the league's rules, but careful when you exercise them ever, because as soon as you exercise them, there's a fear of them changing.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that's the world we were living in. We come to work every day feeling differently than our employers sometimes. But guess what? Who we work for. So what I'm saying to you is we have to make those decisions every day. Welcome to big boy and big girl world.
But what you're talking about is the first time someone chooses to exercise their rights within the context of the league rules. Careful, because they may change because one person decided to behave that way, which is within the rules.
I'm saying to you that September 11th is approaching. You can sit there and be as vague as you want to. September 11th is approaching. That is a very sensitive day.
For sure.
In America. And this happened on the eve of the opening of the NFL season on September 11th. It is not implausible that the NFL may decide to act in accordance with what they believe America is supposed to be about, as wrong as we might think that. And at that point, Colin Kaepernick may have to make a call.
And personally, I agree with you. If it's September 11th, of course, I want to see everyone standing up for the American flag, and I would feel very bad not seeing that. However, once again, the most important time to defend someone's right to do it is the least popular and most inconvenient time.
I agree with that.
Well said. Important and riveting conversation, gentlemen, but we do have to move on.